Howdy folks, Tex Grebner here with Tex Grebner Outdoors. Hope you guys are ready for your Tex Grebner Outdoors Saturday morning cartoon awesomeness, because I'm a minister of darkness for the gospel of the savage. Wile E. Coyote's my spirit animal, and we're about to make it weird. We're doing a spear video today. Firstly, I know that Cold Steel is no longer owned by Lynn Thompson, and so the future of the product line is very uncertain. The future of the United States right now, very uncertain. Also, the future of the world at large, very uncertain. Now, while I'm at it, I personally have never fundamentally cared that Cold Steel products were made overseas. So you're probably here for a couple of reasons. You're going to yell at me that I'm endorsing a non-American made product, and you're going to gloat the fact that Lynn Thompson is no longer in charge of Cold Steel. So now that we've got that out of the way, let me just say, if somebody down the road actually made something like these Cold Steel spears, and I could afford them, then I would buy them, okay? I buy what is available, where it's available, according to my taste. Also, as far as Lynn not being in charge of Cold Steel, Lynn Thompson taught me at the ATA show how to properly throw a spear. He didn't have to do that, and I have never had bad dealings with Lynn Thompson. He has always treated me with more respect than I probably deserved. We're going to be talking about the Cold Steel Samburu spear versus the American hunting spear. And I know that the product line is very uncertain, which technically means if you can get a hold of them, you probably better do it now. Now, if somebody can reverse engineer what I'm showing you, and you can actually manufacture these inside the United States, by God, if you make it, we'll buy it. But for now, these are Cold Steel spears. Now, if you guys want to stay up to date on all things Tex Grebner Outdoors, or possibly check out the merch store, you can do that at TexGrebnerOutdoors.com. If you want to interact with my crippling cyber-social anxiety, you can find me at Tex Grebner Outdoors on Instagram. Now, pretty much every year, the state and national bow hunting organizations come out in opposition of crossbows in bow season, because it's not bow hunting. And I'm not a huge fan of crossbows myself, but if it sells hunting licenses and keeps manufacturers in business, I can't really complain about it. But the trad police hate crossbows. But yet nobody is advocating for legalizing spear hunting in some of these states. This literally is as trad as it gets. Granted, I guess we now know outlaw Tradlife right here, because this is as trad as it gets next to an oddle with flint points or wood arrows with flint points off a self bow. And so this is like a silver flame broadhead from Grizzly Stick on 2 pounds of metal and wood going through an animal. Now, the ethics of spear hunting are constantly called into question every time it comes up. Here's the sad truth. It is much harder to get close enough to an animal to actually put a spear through it than it is to hit what you're aiming at that range. So the ethics of spear hunting are that it is very ethical within its limitations. If you guys are looking for a discount on all your Tradlife supplies, you can go to threeriversarchery.com, check out their merchandise, and use the code of Tex Grebner in your checkout. I'm currently negotiating for an even sweeter code from Three Rivers Archery to get you guys an even bigger discount for showing your support for the channel. When you're getting started throwing spears, one of the most frustrating things is breaking handles. Now, until you actually learn how to throw a Samburu spear properly, it's very possible to break a lot of handles. Very frustrating, possibly expensive. However, that problem is solved, especially for a beginner, by the American hunting spear, because this handle sold separately from your local hardware merchant. So even if this head is not manufactured within the United States, it fits on your standard hardware store shovel handle. As you can see, there's a split in the chalice here. When you get this, what you're going to do is get a dead weight mallet and a piece of wood, take off the sheath, tap it down, being careful And there you go. Now this portion is only going to cost $50 maximum unless prices and availability change. So while this isn't manufactured in the United States, you're still supporting your local hardware merchant by buying a shovel handle. And the truth is, I would have been over the moon if this existed when I was 16 years old. Man, I'd have been all about it. And I hope you guys are too. Now you'll notice here, I have a tape ring. Now I've done videos on how to texture a bow grip with epoxy and sand and chalkboard paint before, but the point of this is to give you something where you can push against it, as well as give you kind of like an anchor point with a bow and arrow. So I love this spear because it does what it's supposed to do for what it's designed to do at a price that you can actually live with. Now, like I say, if somebody wants to reverse engineer this and start making it, I'd be more than happy to endorse it and use it inside the United States. But until that happens, you got to buy from who's selling. And since the future of cold steel is uncertain, I'd pick some of these up before you can't get them anymore. Both spears throw very adequately, and I'm actually pretty impressed with the fact that Cold Steel figured out how to make an affordable spear with a very durable handle. Now, I personally prefer the Samburu spear because it's what I learned on. But for a beginner, dude, I am all about the American hunting spear because it's pretty much unbreakable. I'm not saying that it is unbreakable because, trust me, I'm Tex Grebner. I can figure out how to break it if you give me enough time. And I have, in fact, broken a couple of Cold Steel spearheads off of this metal shaft here before on a Samburu, mostly throwing them into trees and kind of torquing them, getting them out. So the Samburu spear has a much longer metal shaft attached to the chalice here. However, I would say that penetration wouldn't be too terribly limited, especially on what you'd be hunting in North America legally, with this amount of penetration before you run into the chalice. Now, ammo of any kind is pretty hard to find right now, but I tell you what, Aria Ballistic Engineering is in stock and shipping out. So if you're looking for some high-end hunting ammunition between 30-06 all the way up to 505 Gibbs, or you're looking to turn a 12 gauge into something that'll kill a rhino, check out my friends over at Aria Ballistic Engineering. Now, as I mentioned, the Samburu spear isn't quite as durable as the American hunting spear in the handle department. Now, even though I'm claiming that the American hunting spear is durable, I'm not going to do a destruction test. Why? Because not once have I got anything free out of the Cold Steel brand. I paid for all this stuff with my own money, and it would serve no purpose for me to beat the crap out of my own gear beyond my normal usage. So there ain't going to be a destruction test. But seeing as the Samburu spear is not as durable in the handle, 2 is 1 and 1 is none. So buy 2 Samburu spears and put the pointy end rather than the broad end on the ends of one handle, and you're not going to tear up your targets nearly as bad. This end is exactly as dangerous to a human being as that end. So you got to be very aware and careful with small family members and dogs and other critters that might run into this sticking out of a target. Here you can see that on this one I actually hammered on a harpoon point. But speaking of targets, it is highly unlikely that you're going to actually be able to get within spear range of an animal that's up on 4 feet unless you're sitting in a tree stand. I have torn up hundreds of dollars worth of 3D targets over the years thrown into them. Just an embarrassing amount of money for the sake of production value and making cool video. But you don't need to bother worrying about tearing up a 3D target. Now the practice side won't tear it up too much, but it's a lot of bouncing around weight stuck into that target, so it will tear them up too. The Samburu won't be nearly as hard on your targets using the practice points, but it's still going to tear them up. So seeing as you don't really need to worry about throwing at an animal that's up on its feet, this is all you really need when it comes to your target. Just a crossbow stop bag laid on its side like this to simulate a bedded animal. It's just that simple. Now, you're still going to tear up a bag target with the American hunting spear, but it isn't going to cost you nearly as much as screwing up a 3D target. Now, of course, you've seen me throw into hay bales, and that's all well and good. Square bales are good, but once you cut the strings, it's just a mess. Now, you would think, for as much as I've been alluding to the fact of hunting pigs with spears, that I'd be a huge fan of the boar spear. Now, I'm not talking down to this design, because the boar spear has been around since at least the Bronze Age, if not older. But there ain't a guide around that is going to let you do a standing stick with a spear on a bait-up hog. The pig's going to have to be thrown and under control before they let you go in there. So unless you're hunting with your buddies, there ain't a guide around that's going to let you actually stick a standing pig. So that may be an anticlimax, but I want you to understand you might need to reevaluate your expectations and adjust them accordingly. So I'm not a huge fan of the boar spear myself. I own one. Hell, I got to. I'm Tex Grebner after all. Now throughout this video, I have not tried to portray myself as this badass spear hunter because I have yet to be successful. I cannot speak to my own success ratio with a spear on anything other than fish. What I can do, however, is give you my opinion as a consumer that if you get a Cold Steel American hunting spear and you get a shovel handle, the amount of money that you're going to put into it versus the amount of fun that you're going to get out of this, there you go. Tripper and I are planning another trip down to Oklahoma to try and kill with sticks. Whether or not it works out and whether or not I'm successful, that still remains to be seen. But hunting is a visceral mystery after all. And trust me, high fence hogs get shot at for a living, okay? That may not be a hunt, but I tell you what, they are hard to get up close on. So we'll see how that works out. Overall, I'm still the biggest fan of the Samburu spear, but if you're just getting started, I feel like the American hunting spear is going to give you a pretty durable option that you can get away with screwing up on when you're learning without having to worry about breaking it. Don't go throwing these into trees. I'm just saying, because you will be able to break them if you try hard enough. So as a beginner, I think that the American hunting spear, pretty damn good investment if it's something that you're actually passionate about. Now, if you want to get a little bit more advanced, definitely look into the Samburu spear. Well, I hope you guys have enjoyed watching this review. I hope it's been helpful to you as a consumer. As always, God bless all my sportsmen of America. Join the NRA to protect our rights. So you got my friends over at threeriversarchery.com. Thank you very much, those of you involved in law enforcement, you good cops out there, and those of you serving in the military ready to die for freedom anywhere. Thanks for watching Tex Grebner Outdoors.